Hey everyone, welcome back to English Without Effort. I'm David.
And I'm Alice. Today we're talking about something that used to make me want to hide under my desk: job interviews in English.
Oh, absolutely. If you've ever sat in an interview, completely understood the question, and then just gone completely blank, this episode is for you.
So, have you ever felt like you were actually pretty good at English until the moment someone asked you, "Tell me about yourself," and suddenly every word you knew just vanished?
That is such a specific kind of panic, and yes, I have felt it many, many times.
Right? Like, you know who you are, you've been yourself your whole life, and then someone asks and you just, nothing.
So today we're going to share what actually helped us get through English job interviews, not as teachers, just as people who've been through the awkward stuff and figured some things out.
Exactly. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let me take you back to my very first real English job interview. I was applying for a position at an international company, and I thought I was ready.
Oh no, I already know where this is going.
I had practiced my answers at home, alone, in my room, to my wall, and they sounded great to my wall.
The wall was very impressed, I'm sure.
The wall gave me 5 stars. But then I walked into the actual room. There was a real human being sitting across from me, and the interviewer asked me something slightly different from what I'd prepared, and I just froze up completely.
That phrase, froze up, that is so real. I used to freeze up the moment I heard an unexpected question. Like, my brain just shut down.
And the worst part was, I could feel myself freezing up, which made it even worse.
You start thinking about how you're panicking instead of just answering.
Yes, it becomes this whole spiral. And for me, it wasn't even the grammar I was worried about. It was the vocabulary. I'd be mid-sentence and suddenly, I couldn't remember a word I'd known for years.
Like the word just evaporates.
Completely evaporates. I once forgot the word deadline in an interview. I ended up saying the time when things must be finished. And I could see the interviewer trying to figure out what I meant.
Okay, that's actually really funny. But also, that's a totally understandable thing to say.
It's a perfect description of a deadline. But in the moment, I just wanted to disappear.
I think what made it so hard was that an interview isn't just about English. It's about selling yourself, which is already uncomfortable in your first language.
That's such a good point. You're trying to sound confident and professional in a language that isn't your own, while also trying not to say too much, while also remembering your achievements. It's a lot going on at once.
Way too much. And I think a lot of learners feel like if they make one grammar mistake, the whole interview is ruined.
I definitely felt that. Every tiny mistake felt like a huge red flag.
So let's talk about what didn't work, because I tried a lot of things that really didn't help.
Oh, same. Please go first, because I have a list.
Okay, so the first thing I tried was memorizing full answers, word for word. Like I would write out a complete answer to "What are your strengths?" and just memorize the whole paragraph.
And how did that go?
It went terribly. Because the moment the interviewer asked the question slightly differently, or interrupted me, I'd lose my place and the whole thing would fall apart.
It's like memorizing a script, and then someone changes one line and the whole play collapses.
Exactly. And when you're reciting something memorized, it sounds memorized. There's no natural flow to it.
I did the same thing. And then I tried the opposite. I thought, okay, I'll just go for it with no preparation at all. Just be spontaneous.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was also a disaster. I rambled for about 3 minutes on a question that needed a 30-second answer, and I could see the interviewer's eyes glazing over.
So both extremes, over-prepared scripts and zero preparation, they both kind of backfire.
Completely. And another thing that didn't work for me was just reading interview question lists online and thinking about the answers in my head.
Oh, thinking about it versus actually saying it out loud. Those are so different.
Night and day. In my head, my answers were eloquent and impressive. Out loud, they were a mess.
I also tried watching a lot of YouTube videos about interview tips, which were helpful in theory, but they were all for native speakers. So the advice was like, just be yourself. And I'm sitting there thinking, being myself in English is the whole problem.
Right, because the challenge isn't knowing what to say. It's knowing how to say it in English, under pressure, in real time.
Exactly. So those generic tips just didn't translate to our situation.
So let me tell you about the moment things actually started to click for me. It was about 2 weeks before a really important interview, and a friend suggested I do a mock interview with her over video call.
Oh, that's a good one.
And the thing that changed everything was that she told me to think out loud. Like, don't just answer the question, narrate your thinking as you go.
Wait, really? Like actually say, I'm thinking about this out loud?
Kind of, yeah. So instead of going silent when I needed a moment, I'd say something like, "That's a great question, let me think about that for a second." Or, I'd say my main strength is, just little phrases that buy you time while your brain catches up.
Oh, that's smart, because silence in an interview feels so much longer than it actually is.
It really does. And once I started using those little bridge phrases to think out loud, I stopped panicking in the silence, and my answers got so much better.
For me, the turning point was something a little different. I had been trying to chunk it down. Like, instead of thinking about the whole interview as one giant scary thing, I started preparing just one question at a time.
Oh, I love that. Chunk it down. Break it into smaller pieces.
Right, so I'd pick one question, say, why do you want this job? And I'd just work on that one for a whole day. I'd say it out loud in the shower, on my commute, while making coffee.
So you were basically rehearsing it until it felt natural, not memorized.
Exactly. And after a week of doing that with different questions, I had this bank of ideas and phrases that I could actually mix and match. I wasn't reciting a script, I was drawing from a toolkit.
I love that. A toolkit, not a script. That's such a good way to put it.
And the other thing that helped me was recording myself. I'd answer a question on my phone and then listen back, which is incredibly uncomfortable, by the way.
Oh, nobody likes hearing their own voice.
Nobody. But it's so useful because you hear things you never notice when you're speaking, like how often you say or when your sentences trail off without a clear ending.
Okay, so let's get into the actual practical stuff. The things you can start doing right now, even if your interview is next week.
Yes, so the first thing I'd say is chunk it down. Don't try to prepare for every possible interview question at once. Pick 3 to 5 of the most common ones. Tell me about yourself. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Why do you want this job? And just focus on those.
And for each one, don't write out a full answer. Instead, just write down 3 key points you want to mention. Like bullet points in your head, not a paragraph.
Right, because when you have 3 clear points, you can express them in different ways depending on how the conversation goes. You're flexible.
And then, this is the big one, you have to say your answers out loud. Not in your head, out loud. Think out loud, even when you're alone.
I used to do it while cooking dinner. My roommate thought I was on the phone, but I was just rehearsing why I was a good fit for a marketing role.
That's so good. And it doesn't have to be perfect every time. The goal is just to get your mouth used to saying these things in English. Your brain and your mouth need to practice together.
The second thing I'd really recommend is building a small set of what I call buying time phrases. These are short sentences you can say when you need a moment to think.
Like, "That's a really interesting question," or "Let me think about the best way to answer that."
Exactly. Or, I'd say the most important thing is, that phrase is great because it signals you're about to give a focused answer and it gives you a second to figure out what that answer actually is.
Native speakers use these all the time. It doesn't sound like you're stalling. It sounds like you're being thoughtful.
Which is actually a quality interviewers like. They don't want someone who just fires off an answer without thinking.
Good point. Okay, another thing that really helped me was learning the STAR method. And before you think that sounds complicated, it's not.
Yeah, it's actually a really elegant way to chunk it down when you're answering a behavioral question. Like, tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult situation.
Right. STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. So you briefly describe the situation, what your role was, what you actually did, and what happened in the end.
And the beautiful thing about it is that it gives your answer a natural structure, so you don't ramble. You always know where you are in the story.
I practiced 2 or 3 STAR stories before my last interview, like real stories from my work experience. and I could adapt them to fit different questions. It was like having a few good stories in my back pocket.
That's a great image. Stories in your back pocket. And the fourth thing I'd add is, just go for it with imperfect English. Seriously.
Oh, this one is so important.
I spent so long trying to get my English perfect before I felt ready to interview. And the truth is, interviewers at international companies are used to working with non-native speakers. They are not grading your grammar.
They are looking at whether you can communicate clearly, whether you seem confident, whether your ideas make sense. A small grammar mistake is not going to cost you the job.
What will cost you the job is being so afraid of making a mistake that you give a vague, mumbled, one-sentence answer when they needed a real response.
Exactly. So just go for it. Say what you mean as clearly as you can, and trust that the content of what you're saying matters more than whether every verb is conjugated perfectly.
And the fifth thing, this one is kind of a game changer, is to research the company in English before the interview.
Oh, that's a really underrated tip.
Because when you read the company's website, their job posting, their mission statement, all in English, you start to pick up the specific vocabulary they use. And then when you use those same words in the interview, it sounds like you really fit in.
It's like learning the language of that specific workplace before you even walk in. And it gives you great material for the question, why do you want to work here? Because you can actually reference specific things they said.
Right. It shows you did your homework, and it makes your answers so much more specific and convincing.
Okay, I want to talk directly to you for a moment. The person listening right now who has an interview coming up, or who's been putting off applying for jobs because the English part feels too scary.
Yes, please.
I want you to know that the nervousness you feel is completely real and completely normal. This isn't just an English problem, it's a human problem. Interviews are nerve-wracking for everyone.
I've seen native English speakers completely freeze up in interviews. The language is only one part of the challenge.
And here's what I really want you to hear. The fact that you are preparing in a second language, that you're doing this at all, that already says something really impressive about you.
That's genuinely true. If you've gotten to the point where a company is interviewing you in English, you've already done something remarkable. Give yourself credit for that.
And small wins matter so much. If you practice one answer out loud today, just one, that is real progress. That is your brain and your mouth working together, building that muscle.
Every time you think out loud in English, every time you chunk it down and prepare one question instead of feeling overwhelmed by all of them, you are getting better, even if it doesn't feel like it.
And if you have an interview and it doesn't go perfectly, which, by the way, is almost every interview for everyone, that is not a failure. That is data. You learn what to do differently next time.
My first English interview was pretty rough, honestly, but my second one was better. And by the fifth one, I actually felt like myself in the room.
And that's the goal, right? To feel like yourself, just in English. You're not becoming a different person. You're just finding your voice in a new language.
And you will find it. It just takes a bit of practice and a willingness to just go for it, even when it's uncomfortable.
Okay, let's wrap up. What are the 2 things you'd want someone to walk away with today?
For me, number 1 is chunk it down and think out loud. Don't prepare by reading silently, prepare by speaking. Pick 1 or 2 common interview questions and say your answer out loud today, right after this episode.
And number 2 from me is build your toolkit, not your script. Have a few key points, a few star stories, and a few buying time phrases ready. Then trust yourself to mix and match in the moment.
Because the goal isn't to sound like a robot reading a perfect answer. The goal is to sound like a real person who knows what they're talking about.
And you do know what you're talking about. You just need to practice saying it in English.
So this week, try this. Find 1 common interview question online, write down 3 key points you want to make, and then say your answer out loud at least 5 times. Not 5 times in a row. Spread it through your day.
In the shower, on your commute, while you're making tea, just let it become natural. That's how you build real confidence, not just knowledge.
That's it for today's episode of English Without Effort. Thank you so much for spending this time with us.
You've got this. Seriously, go practice that one answer out loud, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Take care, everyone. Bye for now.